Top of the morning, and it is a beaut.
And the hope of the Irish as the future champion of the world.
Podcast is kind of like it's like a radio show that's not on the radio.
Welcome to the Barry J. McDonald podcast. The place where dreams get dusted off and acted on. Because life is too short, we're living on a rock that's flying through space, and hey, what the hell else were you going to do with yourself here?
Hi, this is Barry here, and you are very, very welcome to today's podcast episode. Now, are you someone who could write a blog post, hit publish, and forget about it? Or are you someone who would write the blog post, spell check it, edit it, re-edit it, do that a couple of times, and then even when you hit publish, you still don't like the work? If you are, I hope today's podcast episode will help you out. Now, me personally, I'll put my hands up. I can find myself sometimes going into the second group, trying to get something perfect. And you'll find that if you do go down that rabbit hole, you'll find you can get lost in it very, very easy. Because perfectionism really is a moving target. You know, I found sometimes that when I have recorded episodes in this podcast here, sometimes I would sit down and I can say, I'll do it in one take. Then I'm finding that I'm on take 20 or maybe take 30. Before eventually I come to a point where I say, well, I think this is good enough. Or Barry, you've taken enough time out of your day already. Just hit publish and get it out there. And I know sometimes if I could listen back to the early episodes of this podcast, I'd probably cringe at some of the things that I've said, some of the ideas I came up with, and maybe some of the ways I came across in the podcast. And you're always going to find that. You're always going to find that if you think that perfectionism is going to make you happy, it never does. It always makes you miserable, because you know it can always be better. And if you find maybe that you're kind of losing yourself at the moment, or you're maybe not happy in your business right now, it's probably because you are chasing perfectionism. You're trying to get it perfect, instead of just trying to get it out there the best that you can. You know, I found that as I've kind of relaxed a little bit, tried not to be so strict on myself, that I found that I've enjoyed the process more. Because when you really think about it, the thing that you do, even though you're probably trying to entertain listeners, educate them, make a difference in someone's life, it really all starts with you. You are the first audience. You're the first person with that piece of content. You're the first person who's ever listened to that podcast episode. You're the first person that knows what's in that video. And sometimes you need to focus on you first and actually make something that you're happy with. And forget everyone else. You know, I know this podcast will never be a top 10 podcast. I know I'll never get millions, thousands. Maybe I mightn't even get hundreds of listeners. But I know the only person who is happy right now with this episode is me. I'm trying to make me happy. I want me to close up the app right now on the smartphone and say to myself, Barry, you've done a good podcast episode. Hopefully that will help someone. So I'm not even really thinking about you right now. I'm thinking of me, because I'm making me happy. Now that probably sounds selfish, but when you think about it, why are you doing the thing that you are doing? You know, it's okay saying you're trying to make a big difference in someone's life, or you're trying to make money, or you're trying to do this and trying to do that. But basically, when it comes down to it, you're trying to make you feel good, make you feel better about yourself, that you are contributing, that you're bringing money into the house, or whatever it is. But you're trying to make yourself feel better first, and then the customer, the listener, and the viewer is on the other side. And you'll find when you do things for yourself, although it might seem kind of selfish, if you do things for yourself, you're a lot more relaxed. It's a lot more easy, and you'll show up more often. You know, if I was to look at this podcast and say to myself, well, Barry, you need to get this episode right, and you need to get the episode right tomorrow, and the day after that. If I put that much pressure on me, I know I'll probably only record a handful of podcast episodes. And even then, I'll be miserable. And I'll probably say, screw it. What's the point in doing a podcast? It's too much work. But if I look at this podcast and say to myself, I'm going to record an episode for me. I have an idea, I want to express it, and I hope it makes a difference in someone's life. If I do it for me, there's probably a good chance I'll come back tomorrow and do the same thing tomorrow, and the day after that. And I'll probably show up more often, and I'll actually put more content out. And by putting more content out, spending more time here recording, I'm going to gain more experience. I'm going to get better. And although in the first route, chasing perfectionism, I'm probably never going to get better because I don't have as much hands-on experience as when I was just doing it for myself, showing up more often. Because really, the more times you do something, even though you can be terrible, you will slowly improve. You will learn how to do things better, how to say things better, and your content, your products, podcast, or whatever, it will all improve the more times you do it. And what you need to remember as well is that when it comes to perfectionism, you're not a robot. You know, if I said to myself, well, I have to record a perfect episode today, a perfect episode tomorrow, and the next day, really I know deep down I'm not a robot. I'm not a robot on an assembly line who can just manufacture the same piece every single day to the same standard. You know, some days I can sit down here and I can turn on the phone and I can record a podcast episode without even doing a retake. It just comes straight out, I hit publish, and that's it. But I also know sometimes that I will goof up, I'll make mistakes, I'll lose my train of thought, and I'll need to go back and do another version of it, or maybe do 10 versions of it before I get it right. And you'll find that too, whatever you're doing. Some days you will be in the flow. You'll just open up your laptop and you'll record the piece in one go, and it's done and dusted. Some days you might try and write a blog post, and some days it's almost like you're writing with a keyboard that's covered in treacle, or your brain is just not running up to power. You just can't get the words out. You can't get what you need out, or your product doesn't seem as good. And then there are days when you're just going to be terrible, where you just turn on the laptop and it's just like somebody has just taken your brain out. You just can't focus. You can't get the work done. And that's what you need to remember, that at the end of the day, we're really all just human. And you're never going to be on the ball all the time. You're going to have your bad days. You're going to have your good days. And you're going to have your great days. And you will find that if you do record a piece of content today, it could be fantastic. But you need to be aware that when you come back tomorrow, it could be okay, or it could be bad. But then the next day it could be good. Next day it could be bad. Next day it could be great. So what I would say to you is, not only to you, but also to me, to remind myself, because again, I do sometimes go down the rabbit hole of trying to be perfect. And that's to remember that if you're chasing perfection, you're never going to be happy. But if you're doing it for you, just putting your words out there, putting your thoughts out there, putting something on a page, and doing it for you first of all, forgetting about everyone else, takes a lot of pressure off you. It makes you more relaxed. It makes you more yourself. It's more like, sitting across from each other in a coffee shop, rather than me being all stiff, all kind of, thinking professional. Because what's the point in doing that? Because if you think along those lines, how often are you going to show up to record your content? And again, too, to remember, you're never going to be on game all day, all the time. You're going to have good days, bad days. And if you really want to get good at something, you're going to have to do a lot of it. And chasing perfectionism isn't going to bring you any closer to getting good at it. You need to think of a production line, constantly churning out the content to the best of your ability that day. Some days good, some days bad. But the more you put out, the better you'll get at it, and the happier you'll be in the long run. If I didn't like doing this, well, this podcast wouldn't even be here. I wouldn't even be recording this episode. As I said, I don't even know who's going to listen to this in the future. It could be a handful of people. It could be 1,000 people. I don't know. But I'm doing it for me because it makes me feel good about myself. It makes me feel that, there's something out there, somewhere on the internet that's floating around that somebody could listen to and hopefully make a difference in their lives. Give that some thought today. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye. Would you like to know how I went from being a lowly shelf stacker, depressed, no confidence in himself, and how I went from that to becoming a popular children's author, and then on to even greater things, recording and selling my own digital products? If you'd like to find out how I did it, and if you would like to do the same yourself, if you head over to Writecom, that's WRITECOME.com, you'll find a great free report over there, which is called the Online Business Manifesto. And in that report, I'm going to show you the journey I went on from the beginning to where I am right now. And I'm going to show you the 3 business secrets I learned along the way. Now, these secrets aren't secrets that most people talk about. Some people don't even realise that they exist. So if you head over to Writecom, download the free report, you are going to be miles ahead of everyone else who has an online business. Have a lovely day, and I hope you enjoy this episode.